Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Warren. I'm 34 years old. Last Thanksgiving, my mother looked at my two children in front of our whole family and said they weren't her real grandkids. And by the time my grandmother slid one small white gift box across the table, I realized my mother hadn't just humiliated us by accident. She had planned the room that way. My kids were standing by the kitchen doorway when she said it. Mia was 8. Wearing a burgundy sweater I'd found at a church thrift sale, the one with tiny pearl buttons on the sleeves. Noah was 6, in the navy version, because he still liked matching his sister even though he pretended not to. They were holding paper plates with one roll each, waiting for me to tell them where to sit. My sister's children were already at the dining table, front and center. My niece, Harper, had a gold bow in her hair and an envelope in her lap. My nephew, Easton, was waving his envelope like a concert ticket. My mother, Denise Warren, had just given each of them $200 for being Grandma's blessings this year. Then Mia whispered, "Mom, do we get one?" I didn't answer fast enough. My mother heard her. She set her wine glass down, looked directly at my daughter, and smiled in that thin, polished way she used when she wanted cruelty to look like honesty. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, "those are for my real grandkids." The room did not go silent all at once. That's what people get wrong about humiliation. It has layers. First, the silverware slowed. Then my sister Tessa made a tiny cough into her napkin. Then my stepfather, Alan, looked down at his mashed potatoes, like the answer might be hidden in the gravy. And then my mother added louder, let's not pretend biology doesn't matter." My son looked at me, not confused, ashamed. That was the part that broke something in me, because Mia and Noah are mine. Fully mine, legally mine, emotionally mine, in every way that has ever mattered to me. I adopted them after marrying my husband, Eric, who lost his first wife when Noah was a baby. Their birth certificates have my name on them. Their school emergency cards have my name on them. Their nightmares, their dentist appointments, their favorite cereal, their feverish little hands at 2 a.m., all of that had my name on it too. But my mother had never forgiven me for becoming a mother in a way she couldn't brag about. She liked clean stories. Tessa gave her those. Tessa married a surgeon, had 2 blonde children, bought a white house with black shutters, and posted coordinated pumpkin patch photos every October. My mother called them the Warren legacy, even though they had their father's last name. I married Eric, a widowed electrician with 2 small children and a mortgage that had survived grief better than his kitchen cabinets had. I became a mother by showing up, not by being celebrated. And in my family, showing up was expected. Being celebrated was reserved for Tessa. Still, I had come to Thanksgiving because my grandmother, Ruth Ellison, had asked me to. Grandma Ruth was 81, sharp as a sewing needle, and quiet in a way that made people underestimate her. She lived in the little blue house behind the Methodist church, and still labeled her leftovers with masking tape and perfect handwriting. She had called me 3 days before Thanksgiving and said, "Natalie, bring the children. I want them at my table." I said, "Mom doesn't really want us there." Grandma Ruth paused. Then she said, "I didn't ask what Denise wanted, so I brought a green bean casserole with the fried onions packed separately so they wouldn't get soggy. I brought pumpkin bread wrapped in foil. I brought 2 children who practiced saying Happy Thanksgiving in the car because they wanted my mother to like them. That sentence hurts more than I want it to. They wanted my mother to like them. When we walked in, Mom kissed the air beside my cheek and said, "Oh, you made it," like I had shown up uninvited to a private event. She hugged Tessa for so long Tessa had to laugh and say, "Mom, I saw you yesterday." The place cards were already set. Tessa and her husband, Blake, were beside Mom. Harper and Easton were between Mom and the centerpiece, where everyone could admire them. Eric and I were at the far end near the folding chairs. Mia and Noah didn't have cards. I found 2 extra chairs stacked in the laundry room. When I carried them out, Mom said, "Careful, those scratch the floor," but not, "I'm sorry I forgot your children." Because she hadn't forgotten. She had arranged absence. Eric saw it too. He gave me that look husbands give when they're asking silently, "Do you want to leave? Or do you want me to behave?" I squeezed his hand once. Behave. For Grandma Ruth, dinner had been tense, but survivable, until the envelopes came out. Mom tapped her water glass with a spoon like she was making a toast at a wedding. "I just want to do something special for my grandbabies," she said. Mia sat up straighter. Noah wiped his hands on his sweater. Mom reached into a red gift bag beside her chair and pulled out 2 cream-colored envelopes with gold stickers. "Harper," she sang. "Easton!" The kids squealed. Tessa pressed a hand to her chest, like she had not known this was coming, even though she had her phone out recording before the envelopes opened. Harper counted the cash on the table. Easton shouted, "200!" Everyone laughed. My children watched. I felt Eric go still beside me. Then Mia asked her question, and my mother gave her answer. "Those are for my real grandkids." I stood up so fast my chair scraped the hardwood. Not dramatically. Not screaming. Tessa murmured, "Maybe this isn't the time." I looked at her. "No," I said. "Apparently this is exactly the time." Mia's lower lip was trembling. Noah was staring at the floor. Eric was already reaching for the kids' shoes. And then Grandma Ruth moved. She hadn't said one word during the envelope performance. She had been sitting at the side of the table in her lavender cardigan, her hands folded over her napkin, watching my mother with an expression I couldn't read. Now she reached into her large black purse. The room changed before anyone understood why. Grandma Ruth didn't rush. She didn't raise her voice. She pulled out a small white gift box, the kind jewelry stores use, tied with a silver ribbon. She placed it on the table in front of her, then slid it slowly across the polished wood. It stopped in front of my mother. Mom blinked. "What's this?" Grandma Ruth looked at her and said, "Read the tag out loud, Denise." My mother gave an uncomfortable laugh. "Mother, really, we're in the middle of read it." 2 words. Flat. Final. My mother picked up the box, like it might burn her fingers. She turned over the tiny tag. Her face changed. Not much. Just enough. The smugness drained first. Then the color. Then her eyes flicked toward me, toward my children by the door, toward my sister's phone still recording. Grandma Ruth said, "Out loud." My mother swallowed. And for the first time that entire day, nobody in that room moved. My mother held the tag between 2 fingers, like it had personally insulted her. For a second, I thought she might refuse. That would have been very Denise Warren of her. My mother had built a whole life out of saying cruel things clearly and apologies quietly, if at all. She preferred private corrections and public performances. But Grandma Ruth was staring at her, and there were very few people on earth my mother still feared. Her own mother was one of them. Mom cleared her throat. The tag was small, cream-colored, tied to the silver ribbon with a thin piece of string. Her eyes moved over the handwriting once, then again, as if rereading it might change the words. Finally she said, barely above a whisper, "To Mia and Noah." Grandma Ruth leaned back in her chair. Louder. Mom's jaw tightened. "To Mia and Noah," she repeated. My children froze by the doorway. Mia's coat was halfway on, one sleeve dangling. Noah was holding his shoes against his chest. Grandma Ruth nodded toward the box. "Keep going." Mom looked at the tag again, and this time her voice cracked around the edges. "From their great-grandmother Ruth, who knows exactly what real family means." No one breathed. I mean, that. For one unbelievable second, the entire room went so still I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen, and the faint squeak of Noah's shoes as he hugged them tighter. Tessa lowered her phone. Alan rubbed a hand over his mouth. My mother stared at the tag, humiliated, but not in the way she had humiliated my children. Hers came with witnesses she respected. Grandma Ruth reached across the table and took the box from her hand. "Children," she said, turning toward the kitchen doorway. "Come here, please." Mia looked at me first. That hurt too. How quickly she had learned to ask permission before accepting kindness from my family. I nodded. She walked slowly to Grandma Ruth, Noah close behind her. Eric stepped aside, but stayed near enough to catch either of them if their little hearts gave out under the weight of all the adult ugliness in the room. Grandma Ruth held out the box. "This is for both of you," she said. Noah whispered, "We can open it?" "You can," Grandma Ruth said, "but carefully. It's old." Mia untied the ribbon with trembling fingers. Noah lifted the lid. Inside was not cash. It was a key. A small brass key lying on folded blue velvet, with a little paper label attached to it. Mia frowned. "What is it for?" Grandma Ruth's eyes softened. "My hope chest." My mother made a sound, not a word. More like a warning. Grandma Ruth ignored it. "When I was 17, Grandma said, my father made me a cedar chest before I married your great-grandfather. I kept my wedding gloves in it. Baby blankets, letters, photographs, things that mattered before the world started pretending only money mattered." She looked at my mother when she said that last part. Mom's face went hard. Grandma Ruth continued, "I have decided that chest belongs to Mia and Noah now." Tessa blinked. "Both of them?" Grandma Ruth didn't even look at her. "Yes, both of them." Noah touched the key with one fingertip. "What's in it?" "A few things for you," Grandma Ruth said, "and a few things about you." My throat tightened. "About them?" I asked. Grandma Ruth looked at me then, and there was something in her face I couldn't understand. Not sadness exactly. Not anger. Something older. "Yes," she said, "about them." My mother shoved her chair back. "Mother, this is inappropriate." Grandma Ruth's eyebrows lifted. "Is it? You're making this worse." "No, Denise," Grandma said calmly. "You made it worse when you decided 2 children could stand in your kitchen and learn they were less than." Mom laughed sharply. "Oh, please. I made a distinction. That's all." "A distinction," Grandma repeated. "Yes, a biological distinction." Eric stepped forward, and I felt the heat coming off him before he spoke. "They are Natalie's children." My mother did not look at him. That was another trick of hers. If she didn't respect you, she behaved like your words came from a radio in another room. "Legally, perhaps," she said. Eric's face changed. I put a hand on his arm. Not because she didn't deserve whatever he was about to say. She did, but because Mia and Noah were watching, and I did not want them to remember their father's rage more than their great-grandmother's courage. Grandma Ruth tapped the table once with her finger. "Denise?" My mother turned. Grandma said, "Apologize." Mom's laugh was smaller this time, nervous. "For what?" Grandma Ruth stared at her. "For saying something shameful to children at Thanksgiving dinner." Tessa finally spoke, soft and useless. "Grandma, maybe everyone's just emotional." Grandma Ruth turned her head slowly. "Tessa, if your mother had handed envelopes to Natalie's children and told Harper and Easton they weren't real grandchildren, would you call that emotional?" Tessa's cheeks flushed. Blake looked at his plate. Harper, who was 10 and old enough to know something had gone very wrong, quietly folded her cash back into the envelope. Easton stopped smiling. For the first time all evening, my sister had no polished answer. My mother crossed her arms. "I am not going to be bullied in my own home." Grandma Ruth said, "Then stop bullying children in it." That landed so cleanly I almost heard it crack. Mom's eyes shone, but with anger, not remorse. "Natalie knew how I felt," she said. "She chose this life. She chose a man with baggage, and now everyone expects me to rewrite reality." The word baggage hit Eric like a slap. Mia looked up at me. "Are we baggage?" she whispered. I dropped to my knees right there on the dining room rug. "No," I said, taking her face gently in my hands. "Never. You are my children. You are my best thing. Do you hear me?" Her eyes filled. Noah leaned into my side. I pulled them both close. And while I held them, Grandma Ruth did something none of us expected. She reached into her purse again. This time, she pulled out a large manila envelope. My mother went completely still. Not annoyed. Afraid. Grandma Ruth placed the envelope on the table beside the empty gift box. I was going to wait until after dessert, she said. But Denise seems determined to discuss what makes a family real. Mom's voice dropped. Mother, don't. Grandma Ruth looked at her daughter with 81 years of disappointment in her eyes. Oh, now you want discretion? Alan muttered. Ruth, maybe, she cut him off without raising her voice. Alan, you've been quiet for 15 years. Don't develop timing now. His mouth snapped shut. Grandma Ruth opened the envelope and pulled out a stack of papers. I saw legal seals, blue ink, a notary stamp. My heart started pounding. Because my grandmother was not a theatrical woman. She did not bluff. She did not stir drama for entertainment. If she had brought documents to Thanksgiving dinner, it meant she had expected war. She looked at me. Natalie, sweetheart, she said, there are some things your mother should have told you a long time ago. My stomach dropped. Mom stood so fast her wine glass tipped, spilling red across the white tablecloth. Enough, she snapped. Grandma Ruth didn't flinch. No, she said. It has been enough for 34 years. 34. My age. The room tilted slightly. I stared at my grandmother. What are you talking about? Mom said, Natalie, get your children and go. But Grandma Ruth slid the first page across the table toward me. At the top was my name. Natalie Grace Warren. Below it was a court heading from 1989. And beneath that, one word made my breath stop. Adoption. For a moment, I could not understand the paper, not because the words were complicated, because they were impossible. My name sat there in black ink, ordinary and familiar, followed by a word that had never belonged to me. Adoption. I heard Mia whisper, Mom? But I couldn't answer. My fingers hovered over the document without touching it. Like, if I made contact, it would become true. My mother moved first. She snatched the paper off the table so quickly the corner sliced through a smear of cranberry sauce. This is private, she hissed. Grandma Ruth looked at her. No, it was hidden. That isn't the same thing. My pulse was beating in my ears. What is that? I asked. Mom turned to me, and for one wild second she tried to smile. It was awful. A stitched-on thing. Natalie, your grandmother is confused. Grandma Ruth gave a dry laugh. I drove myself here, cooked 2 pies, and remembered to bring evidence. I'm not confused. Tessa looked between them. Wait, Natalie was adopted? The room reacted to her question before I did. Alan closed his eyes. Blake shifted uncomfortably. My mother said, Tessa, be quiet. But Tessa wasn't looking at Mom anymore. She was looking at me with something I had rarely seen from her. Not pity. Shock. Grandma Ruth held out her hand. Give it back, Denise. No. Give it back. My mother's fingers tightened around the paper. Then Alan, of all people, stood. Quiet, Alan. Wallpaper, Alan. The man who had married my mother when I was 19 and treated conflict like weather he could wait out. He reached for the document. Denise, he said softly. Stop. Mom looked betrayed. Not you too. He didn't answer. He just took the paper from her hand and placed it in front of me. My hands were shaking when I picked it up. Petition for adoption. My name. My birthday. My mother's name listed as adoptive parent. Father. Unknown. Birth mother. Sealed. I read the same lines again and again until the letters blurred. I don't understand, I said. But I did. Some part of me had always known there was a locked room in our family. I had just never known I was inside it. Grandma Ruth's voice softened. You were 4 months old when Denise brought you home. Brought you home. Not had you. Not gave birth to you. Brought you home. My mother sat down hard, as if her bones had been cut. I was your mother, she said. I am your mother. I looked at her. All my life she had told me I was dramatic, ungrateful, too sensitive. She had compared my face to Tessa's, my body to hers. My Grandma Ruth said, Worse. She did it knowing exactly what she was. Mom snapped. I loved Natalie. No, Grandma Ruth said. You owned a secret. There's a difference. My mother's face twisted. You have no idea what it was like. People asked questions. I couldn't have more children then. And everyone knew we'd been trying. When the adoption went through, I wanted a clean start. A clean start? I repeated. Mom looked at me, desperate now, but still somehow angry. I didn't want you feeling different. I stared at the paper in my lap. You made me feel different every day of my life. That silenced her. Because it was true. I remembered being 7, crying because Mom told me I was built differently from Tessa, and should choose a darker leotard for dance photos. I remembered being 12, asking why I didn't look like anyone in old family albums, and Mom saying, not everyone gets the pretty genes. I remembered being 16, finding a hospital bracelet from Tessa's birth in Mom's memory box, and asking where mine was. She told me I had lost it because I was careless even as a baby. Careless, even as a baby. A lie so casual, it had raised me. Eric crouched beside me. Natalie, he whispered. His hand rested on my back, steady and warm. Mia and Noah had crept closer. Mia's eyes were huge. Noah looked scared of the adults again. I folded the document carefully, even though I wanted to tear something apart. Grandma Ruth slid the manila envelope toward me. There's more. Your original records are sealed, but I kept copies of everything Denise allowed me to keep. Letters from the agency. The final decree. A photograph from the day you came home. My throat closed. A photograph? Grandma nodded. My mother whispered, Mother, please. But Grandma Ruth was finished obeying shame. She reached into the envelope and pulled out a faded picture. In it, Grandma Ruth sat on a floral couch much younger but instantly recognizable, holding a baby in a yellow blanket. Beside her stood my mother at 26, hair feathered, smile bright. And in the corner of the picture, on the back of the couch, someone had taped a paper banner. Welcome home, Natalie. I touched the edge of the photo. I didn't know whether to grieve or be grateful. Maybe both. Tessa spoke quietly. Did Dad know? The mention of our father, dead 12 years, made Mom flinch. Yes, Grandma Ruth said. Frank knew. He loved Natalie from the moment he saw her. He never wanted the secret kept. My eyes burned. Dad, the parent who packed my lunches with notes, who taught me to ride a bike, who called me kiddo until his last breath. He had known and loved me anyway. No, not anyway. Just loved me. My mother wiped at her cheek furiously, like tears were an inconvenience. You're all acting like I committed a crime. Grandma Ruth's eyes flashed. You stood in this room and told adopted children they weren't real family while your adopted daughter listened. Mom whispered, I didn't think. No, I said. Everyone looked at me. I stood, still holding the adoption decree in one hand and the photograph in the other. No, you don't get to say you didn't think. You thought about it enough to buy envelopes for 2 children and nothing for mine. You thought about it enough not to make place cards for them. You thought about it enough to say the word real where they could hear you. My voice shook, but it did not break. You knew exactly what you were doing. Mia slipped her hand into mine. Tiny fingers. Real fingers. My daughter. My mother looked at Mia, and for the first time all night, something like shame crossed her face. But shame was not apology. It was only the shadow of one. She said, Natalie, we can discuss this later. I laughed once. No, you don't get later. Grandma Ruth pushed herself up from the chair. Good. Then she looked at my children. Mia, Noah, your chest is in my car. The small things, anyway. The big cedar chest will be delivered to your house next week. My mother's head snapped up. You moved it? Grandma Ruth smiled without warmth. This morning. Tessa frowned. Why would you do that before dinner? Grandma Ruth picked up her purse. Because I know my daughter. My mother looked from Grandma to me, and panic finally broke through her mask. Mother, what else have you done? Grandma Ruth walked to my side and placed one hand on my shoulder. The same thing I should have done years ago, she said. I stopped letting Denise decide who belongs in this family. Then she turned to me. And Natalie, there is something in that chest you need to see before your mother gets to it. Grandma Ruth's words landed harder than the adoption papers. Before your mother gets to it. My mother heard the accusation inside them and went pale. What does that mean? I asked. Grandma Ruth looked tired for the first time that night. Not weak. Just old in a way I had never let myself notice. It means, she said, your father left you something. The room shifted again. My father had been gone for 12 years, but grief still had reflexes. At the mention of him, my hand went automatically to the locket at my neck. Inside was a photo of Dad holding me on his shoulders at the county fair, both of us sunburned and laughing. Mom's voice sharpened. Frank left everything to me? Grandma Ruth didn't look at her. Frank left the house and accounts to you. He left something else for Natalie. That's not true, Denise. It's not true. Then why did you hide it? My mother's mouth closed. Tessa leaned forward. Hide what? Grandma Ruth took the photograph from my hand and tucked it safely back into the envelope. A letter, she said, and a savings bond. Frank gave them to me 2 months before he died. He said if Denise didn't tell Natalie the truth before her 30th birthday, I was to give them to her myself. My chest tightened. My 30th birthday was 4 years ago. Grandma's eyes filled, and that hurt more than Mom's anger. I know. For the first time, Grandma Ruth looked ashamed. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I let Denise convince me she needed more time. Then you married Eric, and she said it would ruin your new family. Then you adopted the children, and she said it would confuse them. There was always a reason. I should have known reasons can become excuses if you stack them high enough. I swallowed hard. Why now? Grandma Ruth looked toward Mia and Noah. Because tonight she used the same lie as a weapon against them. Mom slammed her palm on the table. I did not use anything as a weapon. Noah flinched. Eric immediately stepped between him and my mother. That tiny movement told the whole truth. My husband did not trust my mother's voice around our children anymore. Grandma Ruth said, The letter is in the cedar chest. I moved it this morning because I suspected Denise might try to destroy it once she realized I was done waiting. My mother stood there, breathing hard, and she did not deny it. That was the answer. I felt something inside me go quiet. Not calm. Quiet. Like a door, closing softly but permanently. I turned to Eric. We're leaving. He nodded. No argument. No question. Mia still clutched the brass key. Noah had one shoe on and one shoe off, his little socks sliding on the hardwood. I knelt and helped him because my hands needed something gentle to do. Behind me, my mother said, Natalie, if you walk out like this, don't expect me to chase you. I tied Noah's laces slowly. Then I stood. I don't. She flinched as if I had slapped her. Tessa pushed back from the table. Nat, wait! I almost didn't. My sister and I had spent years in assigned roles. She was the golden child, I was the difficult one. We had both obeyed the script in different ways. But her voice sounded different now. She walked over, holding the 2 cream envelopes Mom had given her children. I didn't know, she said. I believed her. That surprised me. Tessa looked at Mia and Noah, then crouched down to their level. I'm sorry, she said. What Grandma Denise said was wrong. My mother gasped. Tessa! Tessa didn't turn around. Harper came up beside her mom and held out her envelope to Mia. You can have mine, she whispered. Mia looked overwhelmed. No, thank you. Harper's face crumpled. I'm sorry, too. Mia nodded, not forgiving exactly, but recognizing another child trapped in adult mess. Easton shuffled over and gave Noah a roll from his plate, because he was 7 and didn't know what else to offer. Noah took it solemnly. Thanks. It was absurd and heartbreaking, and somehow that dinner roll was the kindest thing anyone from my mother's side of the table had given him all night. Grandma Ruth slipped her coat over her lavender cardigan. I'm coming with you, Mom's head snapped around. You are not. Grandma Ruth lifted her chin. I'm 81, Denise. I assure you, I am. You can't just leave Thanksgiving. I can watch. Ellen quietly reached for Grandma's pie carrier on the counter and handed it to Eric. Mom stared at him. Alan? He looked at her, weary and sad. You should have apologized. That was all he said. But it landed, maybe because it was the first time I'd ever heard him choose a side, and it wasn't hers. We moved toward the front door like survivors leaving a building after a gas leak, careful, stunned, not yet feeling the full danger of what we had breathed in. At the doorway, my mother said my name. Not Natalie. Natty. My childhood nickname. I stopped despite myself. She stood in the dining room, red wine staining the tablecloth behind her like a wound. I raised you, she said. The words were not tender. They were a receipt. I looked at her for a long time. Yes, I said. And tonight, I finally understand why it hurt so much. Then I opened the door. Cold November air rushed in, sharp and clean. We didn't speak in the car at first. Eric drove. Grandma Ruth sat in the passenger seat holding her purse in both hands. The kids were buckled in the back with me between them. Noah half asleep against my arm, Mia staring at the brass key in her palm. After 10 minutes, Mia whispered, Mom? Yes, baby? If you're adopted, does that make you not real? My heart cracked cleanly down the middle. I pulled her close. No. It means someone chose me. And I chose you. Love is real when people keep showing up. She thought about that. Grandma Ruth showed up. I looked at the back of my grandmother's silver head. Yes, I said, she did. Grandma Ruth reached back without turning around. I took her hand. I'm sorry, she whispered. I squeezed once. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But not nothing. We went to Grandma's little blue house first. The cedar chest was too large to fit in her car, but she had packed a smaller cardboard box from inside it. Eric carried it into our living room when we got home. The kids were exhausted, so we tucked them in. Mia put the brass key under her pillow. Noah asked if we were still a family tomorrow. Eric sat on the edge of his bed and said, Buddy, we're a family forever. Once the house was quiet, Grandma Ruth placed the cardboard box on our coffee table. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were baby photos, a yellow blanket, a tiny silver bracelet engraved with my name, and beneath them, an envelope. My father's handwriting was on the front. For my Natty, when the truth finally comes. I pressed the envelope to my chest and broke, not softly, not prettily. I sobbed like a child. Eric held me. Grandma Ruth cried silently beside us. When I finally opened the letter, Dad's voice seemed to rise from the page. Kiddo, if you're reading this, then your mother waited too long, and I'm sorry I didn't fix that while I was here. You were never a secret to me. You were the answer to a prayer I was too scared to say out loud. The words blurred. I wiped my eyes and kept reading. He wrote about the day they brought me home. How I grabbed his finger and wouldn't let go. How he knew instantly that biology was the least interesting way to belong to someone. Then came the paragraph that made Grandma Ruth cover her mouth. There is also something practical. I purchased a bond in your name and kept adding to it. It won't make you rich, but it may give you choices. Your mother knows where the paperwork is. If she says she doesn't, ask Ruth. I looked up. Grandma Ruth was staring at the box. I searched beneath the blanket, photos, and bracelet. No bond paperwork. No certificate. Nothing. Grandma Ruth's face hardened. She took it, she whispered. And at that exact moment, my phone lit up. A text from my mother. You had no right to take what belongs to me. I stared at my mother's text until the words stopped looking like words. You had no right to take what belongs to me. Eric read it over my shoulder. His face went cold. Grandma Ruth took the phone from my hand, read the message, and said, Well, that's a confession. I wanted to deny it. Even after everything, some small, foolish part of me wanted there to be a misunderstanding. Maybe she meant the cedar chest. Maybe she meant the photographs. Maybe she meant her control. But the next morning, Grandma Ruth called the bank where my father had kept his documents. By noon, we knew. The bond had been cashed 3 years after Dad died. My mother had signed my name. Not Natalie Warren. Natalie Grace Warren. The full name my father used only when he wrote me birthday cards. I sat in the attorney's office with Eric on one side and Grandma Ruth on the other, while a woman named Marcy explained, gently, that forgery was not a family misunderstanding just because it happened inside a family. "She stole from you," Marcy said. The word stole made my stomach turn. Not because it was false, because it was simple. My mother had spent my whole life making everything complicated. She wrapped cruelty in manners, favoritism in tradition, lies in protection. But this was simple. She had stolen the money my father left me. And on Thanksgiving, she had tried to steal my children's place in my family too. Marcy sent one letter. One. It stated that if the funds were not returned within 10 business days, we would pursue civil action and notify the proper authorities. My mother called me 17 times that night. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. "You're really going to ruin me over money? Your father would be ashamed of this. After everything I sacrificed for you." Then, finally, "Fine. You win." But it didn't feel like winning. It felt like standing in the ashes of a house I had spent 34 years pretending was warm. On the 9th business day, the money appeared in an escrow account, plus interest calculated by Marcy. My mother didn't include a note. She didn't apologize. She told Tessa I had turned the family legal. Tessa surprised me again. She replied, "No, Mom. You made it legal when you forged her name." After that, my mother stopped speaking to both of us. For 3 months, there was silence. And honestly, the silence healed things I didn't know noise had injured. Mia stopped asking if Grandma Denise was mad at us. Noah stopped hiding whenever my phone rang. Eric painted the hallway the soft green I'd wanted for years but never chose because Mom once said it looked cheap. Grandma Ruth came over every Sunday after church with soup, stories, and an apology she never tried to rush me into accepting. The cedar chest arrived the week before Christmas. It smelled like wood shavings and lavender, like something kept safe on purpose. Mia and Noah opened it together with the brass key. Inside were pieces of me I had never been given. My yellow baby blanket, photos of Dad feeding me applesauce, a copy of the adoption announcement from the local paper, and a tiny hospital bracelet from the day I came home. Not born, but home. Mom had lied about that too. I held the bracelet in my palm and cried. But not the way I cried over Dad's letter. This was quieter. A grief with room for gratitude. Noah climbed into my lap and said, "So, Grandpa Frank picked you?" I smiled through tears. "Yes." Mia touched the bracelet carefully. "Like you picked us." Exactly like that. By spring, we used part of Dad's money to start college accounts for Mia and Noah, not because money proved they belonged, but because my father had wanted to give me choices, and I wanted his love to keep moving forward. We framed his letter and hung it in our hallway. Not the whole thing. Just one sentence. "Biology is the least interesting way to belong to someone." Tessa came over more often after that. Awkwardly at first, carrying casseroles and guilt. Harper and Easton came too. The 4 kids became cousins without needing anyone's permission. One afternoon, I found Harper and Mia making friendship bracelets on the porch, while Noah and Easton hunted worms in the flower bed. No speeches, no labels, just children doing what adults make so hard. Belonging? My mother eventually mailed a card. No return address, but I knew her handwriting. Inside she had written, "I'm sorry you feel I hurt you." I laughed when I read it. Not because it was funny, because it was exactly as much apology as she was capable of giving, and for the first time in my life, I did not feel hungry enough to accept crumbs. I put the card back in the envelope and placed it in a folder labeled Denise. She wrote every name in purple marker, then decorated them with tiny leaves. Grandma Ruth, Aunt Tessa, Harper, Easton. Dad, Mom, Noah, Mia. Then she made one extra card and placed it near the cedar chest in the living room. Grandpa Frank. Nobody corrected her. After pie, Grandma Ruth handed each child an envelope. The same amount for all 4 of them. Nothing dramatic. No speech about real grandchildren. She didn't need one. Noah opened his and whispered, "For me?" Grandma Ruth cupped his cheek. "For you." Mia looked across the table at me, and this time there was no fear in her face. No question asking whether love could be taken away by someone else's definition. Just trust. Later that night, after everyone left, I found both kids asleep beside the cedar chest. Mia's hand rested on the lid. Noah's cheek was pressed against the old yellow blanket. The brass key lay between them, catching the Christmas tree lights like a tiny golden promise. Eric stood behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. "You okay?" he whispered. I looked at my children, my real children, sleeping beside the proof that I had always been real too. "Yes," I said. "I think I finally am." And if you've ever had to protect your children from someone who should have loved them, tell me in the comments. Would you have walked out too?